Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside Government for the spring 2018 semester here at Cayuga Community College. This is a show that is broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, ARMA, as well as Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. Tonight we are delighted to have with us in the studio the new county administrator for Cayuga County, J. Justin Woods, who was hired in November after almost a year-long search by the Cayuga County Legislature and a committee that was appointed by them. He replaces Administrator Suzanne Sinclair, the county's third administrator in roughly a decade, who left last winter in about February. He started on the 6th floor of the county office building in December. We've asked him on to not only introduce him to you, the community, but also to hear his vision for the county, as well as his priorities. Welcome. Welcome to Inside Government and more importantly to our community.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here and excited to be part of the community.
So you're getting all settled in?
Absolutely.
So you're married?
I am.
Any children?
3.
Ages?
Well, first I'm married to my partner Jill.
Okay.
And then we have three little children. Jackson's the youngest, 2.5. Our son Jay is the middle, 4.5, and our daughter just turned 6. That's Jocelyn.
Okay, all J's.
Yes.
And you're in the process right now. Well, you're living here, but you're in the process of buying a house in the center of the city. So you're going to be an Auburn resident by the time this is all done.
We are Auburn residents right now.
Okay.
We have a temporary house in the city. And last Friday we closed on the house that will be the historic house that we'll be renovating and ultimately living in, hopefully before school starts next year.
Okay, so you're glutton for punishment with taking on a new job with the county, as well as doing historic renovation and having 3 children under the age of 7.
That's just living the dream.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lowell, Massachusetts.
Okay, and we were talking a little bit before. You will be rooting for the Auburn Doubledays, except for when the Lowell Spinners are here.
Hey.
Is that the hometown?
Hometown pride.
So now, just so you know this, when that happens in Auburn, they wear the opposing team. They bring in the colors. We have guys who wear Pirates outfits. You're going to wear a Spinners outfit.
Just be wearing a Red Sox hat.
Red Sox hat. So where did you do do your undergraduate work?
I went to college, a little liberal arts college in Vermont called Green Mountain College. Okay. It was an environmental liberal arts school, and I focused on environmental science and public policy, and ultimately had a career in city planning. And
where were you a city planner?
I started in Vermont and Massachusetts, and then I moved to New York, and I've worked in several places throughout New York. I was the planning director, or director of planning and code in Big Flats, New York, okay. And most significantly, where I had the most experience was as the director of planning and development in Ogdensburg, New York.
Okay, and then in between that you decided that 1 degree was not enough, so you went for a triple.
I did. After we had our first child and we were really starting to figure out what our career and life plans were, I decided to go back to law school, and I ended up doing a law degree, a master's degree in public administration, and a master's degree in environmental law, focusing on land use and economic development.
Excuse me, where was that at?
My graduate work was all at Pace University down in Westchester.
Okay, and you got a law degree. Did you ever practice?
I passed the bar and chose to go into a municipal management career instead of practicing law.
And but you are still going to try to get your shingle out there, or at least do the paperwork to have a shingle.
I passed the bar, so I certainly will submit my paperwork within my 3-year window,
okay,
to be able to put Esquire after my name.
And you mentioned Pace University. You have been teaching out of there as well.
Correct. When I finished law school and my master's in public administration, I was invited to join the faculty in the public administration department. And so I've taught a number of courses in public administration, focusing on public policy, sustainable development, intergovernmental relations, and really bringing a practitioner focus and mindset to a program that had a number of academics on the faculty.
And are you still doing some teaching for them?
I am. I remain an adjunct professor. This semester I'm teaching administrative law, but I've cut my load down to 1 course a semester online.
And you're doing that remotely. You're a telecommuter.
I am.
Okay. And a lot of campuses are doing that. That's one of the items on this campus. We have a lot of telecommuters in that sense. But you ended up in Victor, New York. So I can get the Ogdensburg piece. I can get the Pace piece. I can Westchester County. I can get Lowell. How come Victor?
Victor is where my in-laws are settled, and that was a transition place for us to come after law school while I was teaching remotely, and kind of regroup and figure out where the next stop was.
And you've also done some consulting work?
done some consulting over the years, some municipal consulting, helping help the city of Binghamton kind of reorganize and reimagine what their planning and economic development departments should look like. I've done some grant writing, and I've consulted on permitting processes, land use and development, going through planning board, zoning board, grant writing and grants administration.
And for just real quickly, the hiring process here was how did you hear about the job?
I think I saw an ad on LinkedIn that I clicked on, and it was a really cool process where they asked you to submit a resume. They asked you to submit a resume, and then from that they reviewed the resumes that were submitted and invited people to apply.
Oh, okay.
So they kind of did a
before it even got to the HR department of the county.
Well, the HR department did that.
Oh,
so
they did that.
They kind of did a screening based on the resumes.
Okay.
And then invited people to apply.
And then how many interviews? There was a committee appointed, I should say for disclosure purposes, my father was a member of the search committee.
Well, you can say thank you to him for me.
I will do that. I do know he will be watching tonight because he wants to know how you do. What was it? So you went through the application process. What was the interview process?
So coincidentally, I had the first round interview with the HR director on the phone, and then there was an in-person interview. It was actually optional in-person or Skype, and it just so happened we were on Owasco Lake on vacation the week they were doing the interviews. So I came here and I was completely relaxed because we'd been on vacation, and it went really well. And
so this was obviously before blue algae, but blue-green algae.
It was in the news, but it wasn't a problem where we were on the lake. And we had a great interview, and then eventually I was named a finalist and invited back to present to the legislature. And
hired in November.
And they hired me, and they announced that I was the preferred candidate and appointed me, and then we worked out a contract. I finished my semester teaching and then took office right afterwards.
So how are you getting acclimated, not to the community, but to the job itself?
I've been learning a lot. It's been exciting. I've been having a lot of fun. There's been a learning curve going from municipal government, town and city government, to county government, which has a much broader focus and a different focus. You know, in New York, county government is more like state government in other places, administering a lot of social service programs. I think 92%.
One of the largest chunks of your budget.
Yeah, 90%, over 90% of what the county does is mandated services by the state.
So you have roughly what, $147 million budget? Is that
correct.
Roughly? Okay.
And 92.5% of that is mandated services. So things that the state says you have to do.
So have you met with all the members of the legislature privately in groups? How are you meeting your new bosses?
So within the first 2 weeks, I met with 18 legislators, the 15 who were in office when they hired me, and the 3 new ones.
Okay.
I took my notes from all of those.
We may not remember this, only 5 months ago, but there was an election in between all of that as well.
Correct.
Okay.
In fact, I think they announced my appointment on Election Day.
It was.
Or the morning after.
Right.
So I met with all the legislators. I took my notes about kind of what each of them individually thought was important, coupled that with the things that we have to do, and began to rough out some priorities and some strategic priorities, coordinated those with the new chair of the legislature,
Pat Mahunik,
and then really kind of began to roll things out with the staff and organize and get to know the department heads.
So you're meeting with department heads and staff as well?
Correct. I mean, not just the department heads and the senior management, but I've made a concerted effort to be accessible and available to all staff, and I've been trying to visit all the facilities, every department, walk through, introduce myself, make myself accessible, and hear from not just the management, the people who do the work, and have thoughts and perspectives on how to improve things that aren't always heard.
How about the wider community? I know you're going to be a judge this Friday as we tape this on Thursday. Tomorrow you're going to be a judge at the Ignite Chili Cook-Off. Yeah. How are you learning you've joined the Wednesday morning roundtable? How else are you getting acclimated, knowing about the community?
Well, I had a couple of colleagues in the community who've been very helpful in acclimating me into kind of some of the social and professional and collegial circles that I want to be part of. Mike Long was a longtime colleague. Steve Lynch is a longtime colleague, from both of them from the planning world, Jenny Hayes. So I know a number of these folks through my career. And then my wife has some family in the community, as well as a friend that she was a
So her aunt is here, and we were talking about this, and I did not put the connection. Your late uncle in law was?
Coach Bob Adams.
Who we go just west of here, is spent a lot of time on that in Holland Stadium. So,
Yeah.
So you got a lot of Auburn connections to start with, and Cayuga County connections.
Yeah, I have some professional ones. My wife has some family ones, and then she also has a good friend from college who was a sorority sister that grew up here. So we have some ties, and I've been drawn to the community since I first came here for a planning conference over a decade ago.
Okay, and one of the things that your predecessors, and I say this in general because I'm not sure about, I think it was Suzanne Sinclair, but it may have been Tom Squires and others. There used to be meetings of the manager, the city manager, the county administrator, the mayor, and the chairman. Are you still trying to do those, or haven't you gotten that far? You've literally been here 60 days, roughly.
Yeah.
Have you started to try to do those as well?
I've been meeting pretty regularly with the city manager, not so much with the mayor. I've met regularly with the chair. The division of labor that the chair and I have really worked on, and what he's been strongly supportive of, is me working on the day-to-day operations, me working on the administration of the government, coordinating the department heads and the staff to get everybody rowing in the same direction, and he handles more of the political liaisons and relationships.
Okay. So that's a great way to segue into this. So what do you envision as your role as the county administrator?
I am the Chief Administrative and Operational Officer for the county. So my job is to run the day-to-day operations of the government, to hold the department heads and the employees of the government accountable for the work that we do, to report to the legislature as a whole. The legislature is the policy-making body. Mm-hmm. You know, they pass the budget, they establish the policy framework that they would like the government to focus on. My job is to work with the department heads to get it done and to hold everybody accountable to that agenda that the elected officials set.
So there is a difference between a city manager form of government and a county administrator. Can you give us an idea of where that is?
Sure. The city manager is more of a chief executive officer by charter, whereas in that form of government, and I'm not specifically familiar, I haven't studied the Auburn structure as well, but I can speak to this more as a professor and teaching it. Okay. Typically in a manager form of government, the management professional is the CEO. So even if you have a mayor, he's more of a presiding officer and a ceremonial mayor, which does have an important political and intergovernmental relations role. Certainly a role with setting the tone for the elected officials and for being that presiding officer. In an administrative form of government, I'm not the chief executive officer. The chair is still the chief executive officer. Okay. My job is more kind of as a CAO or a COO, an administrative officer, an operations officer, focused on the day-to-day operations. But I don't have some of the same authority that a manager would. Like, for example, if you had a charter with a city manager or a county manager, the county manager would likely have more hiring and firing authority than I do. Maybe some more independent budget authority for expenditures, where in the county government, some of that still goes through that committee process.
So what is the role, what's the role of the county legislature as you see it?
They are the legislative body that approves the laws, that approves the budget, and establishes the policy framework that guides the work that the government does on a day-to-day basis. And then my job is to administer the government on a day-to-day basis.
And so how about the role of committees? Because in the city or a town, they mainly meet as a group of the whole, where you have is it 7 committees?
We have 6 committees.
6 committees.
And those are different throughout the state. So there's any number of ways you can set those up. The way it works here is that we have 6 committees that each have 5 subject matter areas that focus on oversight of the legislation that's working its way through the process. So, for example, if you're working on a resolution that requires approval from the Department of Health or Human Services, you go through the Health and Human Services Committee. Right. Public Works goes through the Public Works. and those are smaller committees of the legislature.
5 or 6 members usually.
Yeah, I think 7.
7, okay.
And then they go from there to the Ways and Means Committee. Everything goes through the Ways and Means Committee as kind of a supra committee, looking at things from a...
And those are mainly committee chairs.
Those are the committee chairs and the chair. And then once they've gone through those 2 processes, it goes to the legislature.
So you come into a job that has not had a great history.
Sure.
3 managers, 10 years. The county took some time, and this may have been why it took so long to get a replacement for Suzanne Sinclair, to make some changes to this position. Do you know what those changes are, and how do you think that will change so that you get a renewal in 4 years?
Well, I mean, certainly that would be great to have some stability for my family. I'm the
And so does your wife. Your wife says the too, I'm sure.
Absolutely. She thought there was a lot of stability in academia. I'm the 5th chief administrative officer in 10 years. There was a county manager, an interim county manager, and 2 previous county administrators.
Right.
So certainly that was concerning, looking at it as a prospective job opportunity. But what really drew me in was the fact that the legislature as a body took time to say, you know, it hasn't worked for us for whatever those reasons are. Let's slow down and take a look at what they were, and let's figure out how to better delineate the roles so that it will be more successful going forward.
Do you think that was the main issue of who was responsible for what caused going through all those managers?
Not being here, it would be hard for me to say, but more generally speaking, I think that those things come down to several factors. One is organizational structure and organizational culture. Are they used to having a strong administrative person as that liaison between the departments and the legislature? Is that position or person respected so that the proper flow of information occurs through the organizational structure as it's set up, or is it being circumvented? So there's probably a combination of factors that had to do with organizational things and the personnel who were in the positions, and the personnel that were involved at various times in elected capacities. So the legislature, before they went through the hiring process, brought in a strategic planner, a facilitator, and they laid out what, in their opinion, were the roles for each, for the elected officials, the legislature, for the department heads, for the administrator. And they did that simultaneously with asking the department heads what worked and what didn't, and for their feedback and what they were looking for in an administrator. So all of that kind of came together in a framework that the legislature adopted as policy.
And that made you more comfortable.
And it made me feel at least that the legislature had the commitment to making this form of government work, and that was appealing to me, coupled with the overall organizational assessment going on with the Center for Government Research. So I kind of saw this 2-tier.
There's a group out of Rochester.
Yeah, this two-tier process going on, where on one hand they're looking internally and saying, you know, this form of government we think it should work, but it's not working. What do we do to fix it? And then more comprehensively, as a government, you know, there's a lot of challenges, there's fiscal constraints, there's a lot of mandated services. What can we do to provide better services, to do it more efficiently, to provide, so kind of all that came together and said, this looks like an exciting place to go right now. I think there's an openness and a desire for change, and I thought I brought some skill sets of managing change through the history of my career that were a good fit for this time.
I know, and I only know this because I read The Citizen, Suzanne Sinclair is traveling internationally, but have you had any conversation with either she or Tom Squires, your 2 immediate predecessors?
I haven't had any conversations with any of the 3 of them. Ms. Sinclair left a memo to Mr. Batman when she left, and a copy of that was relayed to me, as was Mr. Batman's transitional memo and materials.
And as the former chairman of the legislature, he's been since replaced by legislator Mahunik.
Correct. So
and you have a 4-year contract.
Correct.
So let's talk about some issues that are going on.
Absolutely.
Let's shift. New York State Association of Counties is your overarching group of guys who tell you what is going on in the state of New York. They had a meeting, I guess, last month. Did you attend?
I did.
Any members of the legislature go with you?
Yeah, I think we had a half a dozen up there, including the chairman.
And so what's on NISAC's agenda?
Well, NISAC is right now is looking at the budget, looking at the impacts of several laws and the implications that will have for counties. Raise the age is one of the most significant things.
So for people who don't understand, just real quickly, raise the age is changing a judicial procedure.
Raise the age is changing the legal environment under which, for lack of a better word, we'll just say kids, right? Because there's a number of different designations of the law. But when teenagers make mistakes, there's various judicial processes, paths that they can go through. And the idea behind Raise the Age was to eliminate some of the punitive aspects of the criminal justice system and raise the age of criminal responsibility, except for some of the worst cases.
And that will impact counties on what you spend resources on.
In many areas. It affects areas in probation.
Let me guess, the state is not giving you any extra money for that.
No, actually that's not the case. The state,
okay.
We have to put together a plan, but the state has committed to fund the extra cost at 100%.
For how long?
That's the question.
Okay. Because they're usually good for the first year and maybe the second year, and by the third year, it's an unfunded mandate.
Yeah. So right now, there's no indication that they're going to pull the funding, but we have to document those costs. We have to demonstrate those costs are tied to implementing this law, and it affects a number of areas. It affects probation. It affects social services. It affects the court system. It affects the county attorney's office, because now the county attorney will be for lack of a better word, enforcing those proceedings against youthful offenders in a family court instead of the district attorney.
You've got a law degree. Just hang in there. So you mentioned the budget. Where does the county, if you have had literally 60 days or so, the county, where is the governor's budget? How's it impacting, from what you know at this point, and from what NISAC has told you, impacting Cayuga County?
Well, we're looking at, like I said, a number of these areas, and certainly Raise the Age is one of the most significant, because even though they're committing to fund some of this stuff in the future, we have to fund it first, okay, and then seek the reimbursement. A couple of the other areas in the shared services, we're mandated to provide the shared services plan this year, right. So we have to do that, and then there's the prospect that some of any savings generated from that, we can see some reimbursement back from the state.
So do you know if any state aid is up at this stage, or from what you've preliminary gotten from the governor's office?
I haven't seen those numbers, but I know one of the biggest considerations of the budget is the reduction of aid to the community colleges, which has a significant impact on our budget.
It does. We'll be talking about that next week with others. Any mandate relief any takeaways on mandate relief from?
I haven't seen anything on mandate relief from NISAC or in my own research.
So for you, what do you see as the biggest challenge for the county, and for you?
Well, I think the short term is that, and it's a challenge, but it's also exciting, is working with all of the municipalities, the 33 municipal entities, to prepare the shared services plan, to document ways that we work together now, and really identify ways we can work together more comprehensively in the future. I had breakfast with the county highway superintendents last week or the week before. I'm looking forward to meeting with the town supervisors and the mayors, and really thinking outside the box in ways that we can improve service delivery, reduce cost, and improve operational efficiency.
So the county is through about 1/6 of its budget, so you really don't even have a full quarterly report at this particular stage. We'd love to have you back on to talk about that. But where is anything you have a worry about or concern on the budget front? Again, it's a budget that you were not here for. You won't put your first budget together until later in the year. Any concerns you have right now?
Well, I'll be able to address that after the first quarter.
Okay. But sales tax at this stage is up.
Sales tax is up. The governor's budget proposes the collection of online sales tax, which would perhaps further increase sales tax revenue. So from those perspectives...
or change buying habits.
One or the other. And if that happens, maybe more people will shop on Main Street, which would be a good thing. So from a budgetary standpoint, I think we're in a healthy financial situation. We have a strong fund balance. We have a solid budget. We have investment needs that we're going to have to take a hard look at: capital improvement, infrastructure, buildings. You know, over the last 10 or 15 years, and this isn't unique to Cayuga County, the economic challenges, the recession, led to a lower investment and reduction in the size of government. And in some areas that's been very good because we've been able to learn to do things more efficiently. But in other areas, it's left us, I think, under-resourced.
So on the budget front, because we only have 3 or 4 more minutes left, when will you start your budget process?
I think we start our budget process in the summer, end of the summer, start meeting with department heads.
Is there anything you see in the process that you will change?
Well, a lot of that right now is going to be driven by some of the recommendations we see from the CGR report in terms of areas that we might want to move around or make additional investment in.
But you've been here 60 days. You immediately started some changes. One was the website for the county. What did you do?
Well, we didn't change the website per se, but we did start a new monthly report that we are making available on the website. It's a once a month report snapshot of everything going on countywide in the government.
That is a major change.
It's a major change. We published it. We provided it to the legislature to provide them information, and we provided it on the website for the public to get information about what's going on in their county government. And that had 2 purposes. You know, 1, to inform the policymakers, 2, to inform the public at large, and then number 3, so I guess it had 3 purposes, and this was another key part of this, was by taking that routine reporting and administrative reporting out of the committees, it allows the legislature to focus on their legislative functions. So our staff can go through the committees and educate them about policy and lay the foundation for the policy objectives that they want to bring forward.
One of the complaints in the last couple of years has been this issue that real property information is not on the county's website. Is that something you'll be looking at? In Onondaga County, you can go on, and here you have to go to ImageMate or something like that to find information.
Well, Onondaga is a lot larger county than we are,
right.
And they have significant more resources. But this is the first I'm hearing of that issue, and it's certainly something I'll take back and meet with my staff and discuss.
2 quick final items. Cayuga Centers has made an announcement last year, layoff of 120 individuals. Is there any impact on the county besides loss of jobs? I understand that. But is there any direct financial cost to the county?
I haven't been briefed on any direct financial costs, but certainly they're a major service provider in the area, and that may have an impact on the services.
So have you met with Cayuga Centers at all?
I have not. This just came out, what, 2 days ago?
So there's no.
So
okay.
I know our director of social services and director of community services is Ray Bizzari, has been leading efforts on this front.
The other item is, I know you attended your first officially today is your first Cayuga County Economic Development Agency meeting. You're a voting member.
I am.
You're the designee from the county.
Correct. The chair is an ex officio. This morning the board voted to amend their bylaws and permit the chair to designate the administrator to act in his capacity.
And you have a background in this area, so.
I do. I have a long background in economic development.
So you figure this is something that's a plus for the county.
Yes.
Our guest has been new Cayuga County Administrator J. Justin Woods. I want to thank you for joining us today for your first time. We hope you'll come back on a regular basis to give us updates. He has just started at the county literally 60 days ago, and we wish him well in his new position and in your new housing.
Thank you very much.
As you renovate. Good luck with that. In a moment, we'll be back with the semester premiere of Beyond the Front Page, featuring the Cayuga Fund that celebrates its 10th anniversary this year with Michael O'Gorman and John Wilcox. On Tuesday, we'll have back-to-back Beyond the Front Page shows. We'll have Wells College President Jonathan Gibraltar, who will be talking to us about the impact of New York State on his college, including the Excelsior program. We'll also have an update from the Auburn Public Theater with Angela Dodabo and Carrie Idell, who will give us an update on what their Red Sea Regional Economic Development Council funds will be used for. And then on Thursday, we'll have an Inside Government with Auburn Police Chief Sean Butler, Sergeant Greg Dan, and School Resource Officer Chris Major to talk about last week's active shooter exercise at Auburn High School, especially in the wake of the Parkland shootings. And then we'll follow by Beyond the Front Page with Stephanie DeVito, the Executive Director of the Auburn Downtown Business Improvement District. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll have a number of shows featuring Legislative Chairman Pat Mahunik, who we mentioned, Owasco Town Supervisor Ed Wagner, Cayuga County Planning Director Steve Lynch, Auburn City Manager Jeff Dygert, and representatives of Hospice of the Finger Lakes, which is celebrating a key milestone in their history and great works. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can send us your thoughts or questions or ideas for guests to be on the front page at cozguytho@aol.com, or Inside Government, or be on the front page at 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you'll stick around for Beyond the Front Page, but otherwise have a good night and have a great tomorrow.